Vasishta continued, O Ram, he who knows that all the activities merely happen because of the mere existence of consciousness, even as a crystal reflects the objects around it without intending to do so, is liberated. So this is a state of resting in your own awareness, or just resting in awareness. And it says here, because of the mere existence of consciousness, which seems like a strange word to use when this situation has often been described as resting in the Supreme Being, in the infinite consciousness. Here it's described as mere existence, the mere existence of consciousness. I think this mere existence of consciousness is suggesting is we're not getting caught up with all the notions. It's simply consciousness. Consciousness is extremely simple. But we bring in all these complicated notions of body, of world, of I, me, of mine, all the rest of it. It's simply consciousness. I think perhaps that might have been a slightly better word to use. It's simply existence of consciousness. And within consciousness, we could say everything is reflected. Everything is going on. That's simply it. Without asking ourselves what is going on, without cogitating about it, without trying to apprehend it, without creating divisions within it, it is simply all just happening. It's all going on. And this is liberation. They who, even after taking this human birth, are not interested in such non-volitional activity, go from heaven to hell, and from hell to heaven. Because once you start getting caught up in what's going on, start forming notions about what's going on and getting involved in these notions, this is heaven and hell. You might have moments of great pleasure, but also moments of desperation and despair. Some there are who are devoted to inaction, having turned away from or suppressed all action. They go from hell to hell, from sorrow to sorrow, from fear to fear. So this is like, you might have had a partial realization or an intuition that, oh, this is not worthwhile. It's all not worthwhile. I'm not having anything to do with it. That's a bit of a tragedy. Some are bound by their tendencies and intentions to the fruits of their own actions. And they take birth as worms and vermin, then as trees and plants, then as worms and vermin again. So these people haven't gone very far. Others there are who know the self. Blessed indeed are they. They have carefully inquired into the nature of the mind and overcome all cravings. They go to higher planes of consciousness. As I said before, there aren't planes of consciousness. There's only consciousness. I suppose we can conjecture that perhaps other beings, other creatures or entities like trees have their own consciousness and we can create some hierarchy. But that's all conjecture. These are all just notions. All we can truly know is the one consciousness. He who's taken birth for the last time right now is endowed with a mixture of light, sattva, and a little impurity, rajas. Right from birth he grows in holiness. The nobler type of knowledge enters into him with ease. All the noble qualities like friendliness, compassion, wisdom, goodness, and magnanimity seek him and take their abode in him. He performs all appropriate actions, but is not swayed if the results appear to be gain or loss, nor does he feel elated or depressed. His heart is clear. He is much sought after by the people. Such a one who is full of all the noble qualities seeks and follows an enlightened master who directs him along the path of self-knowledge. He then realizes the self, which is the one cosmic being. Such a liberated one awakens the inner intelligence, which has been asleep so far. And this awakened intelligence instantly knows itself to be the infinite consciousness. becoming constantly aware of the inner light, such a blessed one instantly ascends into the utterly pure state. So it's instant. It's instant. We do this in an instant. Such is the normal course of evolution, O Ram. However, there are exceptions to this rule. In the case of those who have taken birth in this world, two possibilities exist for the attainment of liberation. The first is, treading the path indicated by the Master, the seeker gradually reaches the goal of liberation. The second is, self-knowledge literally drops into one's lap, as it were, and there is instant enlightenment. Now, we're entering into some contentious territory here. This has been one of the great debates, both within, especially within Buddhism, but here we have it in the Hindu context. Is enlightenment gradual, or is it sudden? And is it the result of treading a path, or is it just a matter of circumstance? Well, I put forward my own opinion in the matter, or my own observation. I think it's worth reading what Ramana Maharshi had to say about it. My translation is of the Yoga Vasishtas by Swami Venkatesananda, and at the beginning of section 6 he has a long quote from Sri Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. I'll just read the end of this quote. It is true that it is only possible for mature minds, not for immature ones. For the latter, that is for immature minds, repetition of a mantra under one's breath, japa, worship of images, breath control, pranayama, visualizing a pillar of light, and similar yogic and spiritual and religious practices have been prescribed. By those practices, people become mature and will then realize the self through the path of self-inquiry. In other words, if you cannot do this, if you cannot turn your attention to itself, if this isn't obvious to you or apparent to you, then you could get on with spiritual practices. Although, personally, I see no relationship between doing spiritual practices and self-inquiry. It isn't about a mature mind. It's really just about stumbling around in the dark until you find the light switch. That's all we can do. That's what's spiritual. That's the only thing that spiritual practice can get you to. And when you found that light switch, that's when real spiritual practice begins. That's when the self-effort to self-inquiry begins. That's when you're practicing right liberation. Liberation is a practice. And if you're on a path, and if it's very difficult not to get expectations about what the end results are going to be, there are very subtle obstacles that can be built up. And perhaps if you've got a good master, good teacher, then he'll be aware of that. But who's to know who's a good master and who's not? So, two paths are suggested here. One is the path of spiritual practice, and the other is instant enlightenment. And enlightenment must be instant. There's no path to it. There's no path from the conditioned to the unconditioned. It's something that is a quantum leap. It's something that you jump to. It's something that attention must jump to. The attention can jump to in an instant. It can jump to its focus on all the contexts of awareness, or it can jump to itself, and this is it. This is you in pure awareness. There's no path to it. You either do it or you don't. I shall narrate to you an ancient legend which illustrates the second type of enlightenment. Please listen.